No, not doing this. Hang on. There we go. No.
I love that one.
Hang on.
No, because you can all touch screen.
Yeah, well, but it's not because it doesn't. Okay, I'm just gonna have to do it like this because it. Right, you go and stand. Can you go and stand there and work out?
Get everyone that's dressed up in front of the camera. Yeah, we need to. Yeah,
Yeah. Sorry. Right. We ready?
Ready? Are we?
Right.
Hello! I think we're ready. The main one has edition.
As you might have guessed, it's Fancy Dress Special.
It is.
Colour intersections.
And guess what we are? Okay, so.
Yeah, what a wonderful few weeks we've had. Miss Kelly J. Keane has gone to America. And we've seen a mixed bag of responses. American clowns being as they are, Black Panthers out in full force.
Yeah, breaking women's hands.
Yeah.
Change people's minds. What else have we had? We've had the LGBA, where a couple of women were harassed afterwards by some TRAs. We've had Philia, which was fine, but a couple of women were arrested for asking a man to leave the toilet.
That's where we are now.
We've had a woman denied life-saving treatment because it might hurt a man's feelings.
Yeah.
What else we had? We had the Scottish GRA reform.
That's coming up in the next week or so.
We've had Eddie Izzard. What else? I'm sure I'm missing something else.
Do you know what? It all blends into one at this
It
point.
does. It's insane. But yeah, let's go. We are doing fancy dress, so the best dressed here will win something. And we've got a bag of sweeties and some random stuff. Feel free to take whatever you want from here. Do take it because I will eat all these sweets afterwards and end up with diabetes.
Right. Who would like to kick things off for us?
Dobby.
Awkward.
Okay. Dr. M.
Hello, sisters and men. Well, today Dobby has come to talk about fetishes in classrooms. So even I couldn't have predicted that we would reach a stage where it was deemed not just normal, but something to celebrate when your children were being used for adult men to get their sexual kicks. These AGPs, what we used to call cross-dressers, were not born in the wrong body. Even if they did get the terrible SADs, if they weren't allowed to feed. A generation of children are being taught to ignore that gut feeling, that they exist to pander to pervs. Recently, Grant Shapps spoke in Parliament about the findings of the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. He spoke of the dangers and devastating impact of putting reputation above child safeguarding. You will get a reputation for being unkind, mean, or lacking nuance. But I see no kindness or nuance in permitting kids to be fetish fodder. We have to find our courage, and we have to speak the truth. To call a spade, a man, and a predatory perv, a predatory perv.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. M. I mean, we forget a lot of this is about wearing down our boundaries over and over and over again, and that now we live in a time in Britain in 2022 where a woman who asks a man to leave her own toilets Has the police called on her, and the police actually arrest the woman for raising the complaint. It's absolutely shocking that it's come to this. Has anybody got anything else they want to? Oh, this can't be it.
Something, I don't know how suitable.
Go on, get up.
So some of the names that I use in this have been altered. So this is a particularly interesting week to have this Speaker's Corner, as it's starting to get a bit cold soon. It's nearly November now, and I always feel that as the temperature drops, one starts to reflect on the year that's just passed. So 2022 has been a pretty big year for us. We've had the confirmation that our views are legally protected by the Satire ruling. And Alison Bailey, that also won her case against her employer with aggravated damages. She won by a mile. The Cash Review is a damning indictment on the affirmation-only care law. Mermaid attack on LGB Alliance has spectacularly backfired in what for us is the very dictionary definition of schadenfreude.
Absolutely.
Numerous government organisations have pulled out Stonewall's crazy diversity schemes, and the Equality and Human Rights Commission has repeatedly stated the need for single-sex spaces. The conversation is happening. A conversation that will protect children and will find solutions to make transgender people's lives better without compromising the safety, privacy or dignity of women. We've made progress in making women's sport safe and fair again, and of course continue to expose the sheer misogyny of the trans rights movement. And as much as I cannot stand the Tory party, this government, the one as I speak on October 30th, 2022, might be changed in 3 weeks' time. They look like they will prioritise our rights and may even amend the Equality Act to ensure the protected characteristic of sex actually means sex. That being said, we still have one hell of a fight ahead of us. Recently, a woman was denied a medically necessary operation due to her legal request for same-sex care. The private hospital made no attempt at communication to fulfil her request as much as they feasibly could do so. The police are not always doing their job, with women arrested for challenging men in their spaces, and investigations into women calling men online. Meanwhile, rape convictions are an estimated 1.5% nationally, and a woman is still killed every 3 days by a man. There are still male sex offenders being referred to as female and in the female prison estate. So us English women have still got work to do, but our task is minute compared with our international and Scottish sisters. There have been physical attacks at Let Women Speak events in the US, and lesbians in France and Germany have been attacked for the crime of being vocal about same-sex attraction. Women are still being threatened with jail time in some countries for misgender. This shows the situation in the developed world isn't great for women who merely want the privacy, dignity and safety of single-sex spaces. Our sisters in the global south exist under the threat of child marriage, femicide, domestic violence, honour killings, repression and other violations of the most basic human rights. This happens to them because they were unfortunate enough to be born to a so they cannot identify outwards. Back here, this week, the Gender Recognition Reform Bill passed its first stage. Under the Gender Recognition Act 2004, a man is legally considered a woman in his GRC, which is not easy to obtain. He has to have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, and he lives a woman for 2 years, whatever that means. While this is very flawed, there is at least some gatekeeping. Any predator wanting to exploit this has got to go to some considerable effort. Self-ID in Scotland has removed these safeguards. To obtain a GRC, all one needs to do is be aged over 16 and declare oneself to be the opposite sex. Realistically speaking, this doesn't actually change much, as Scotland has had self-ID for practice for a while now. The Scottish Prison Service has recently said they have never dealt with a trans woman with a GRC. Yet there are men in the female estate, and half of these are convicted sex offenders. Women's refuges have not been single-sex for a while too, and women have self-excluded. The damage this bill will do is setting a legal precedent. Prior to reform, nearly all males could be excluded from female spaces, and given most trans-identified men do not have a GRC, and most importantly predatory men looking to exploit loopholes in the law are even less likely to have one, with barriers to obtaining one, any organisation that could legally exclude men could do it. Caregiving firms could guarantee same-sex care. Refuges could exclude men to allow the women inside need an appropriate recovery space. And yes, any organisation that wanted to properly segregate changing rooms or toilets were legally entitled to do so, even if it is difficult in practice. What was certain, though, is a woman could challenge a suspected voyeur. So what have the SNP really voted for? Access all areas, for predators in short. All a male predator has to do is say he's a woman. Organisations must treat him as one, and women cannot challenge. The Scottish Government has utterly disregarded all criticism from women. During the consultation, they found the time to talk to 17 transgender people in favour of the Act. Nothing wrong there. When 3 female survivors of sexual violence came calling, there was no time. Numerous trans lobby groups were consulted, and then only after backlash did the SNP consult women's groups. By this time, the bill had been finalised, so the women would have been better off taking their complaint to the nearest West Highland Terrier, which would have lent a far more compassionate ear than the SNP. The government then 3-line whipped a conscience vote in a move that is utterly desperate, and they have still had the biggest rebellion the SNP have ever had. Rushing that through as quickly as possible while telling everyone that it won't affect their lives, and then whipping the vote tells you everything you need to know. This bill is dodgy. There would not be this mad scramble to avoid scrutiny otherwise. Well, there are scenarios that have already happened due to de facto self-ID that Scotland has effectively had for a few years now, but women will now be unable to challenge any of this. Your elderly mother with dementia cannot be guaranteed a female carer during her last days, and she cannot understand that the male carer she has been assigned is legally a woman. A survivor of male violence who freezes up in sheer terror when intimately touched by a man cannot be sure she will have same-sex care after a major operation. Male crimes will be recorded as committed by women, obfuscating statistics about sex crime patterns. Women can now be stripped and cavity searched by a man, and after that violation be told that the officer who performs such an act is as much as a woman as she is. After this, she can be incarcerated with men who have committed crimes such as rape, domestic violence and murder, and have claimed to be women after conviction. Locked in with them permanently, no escape. The other women with her are mostly survivors of male violence incarcerated for non-violent crimes, now tortured, and that is no exaggeration. Intentionally inflicting severe pain or suffering in the performance of official duties is torture by the law. Self-inflicted solitary confinement is the only way these women can escape. To avoid freezing up in fear as she sees the face of her attacker in another man. The flashbacks, the panic attacks, fear it could happen again at any time. 88 people voted for this. I want those 88 to look women in the eye. Not me, an English woman lucky enough to have no history of trauma. Look those women who have seen the worst of men. Laura, who is self-excluded from a refuge because she's petrified of men and cannot heal. Claire, who has been abused her whole life and is now in prison and won't leave her cell, not even choose the communal showers because her flashbacks and her terror are so intense and so debilitating. Emma, an elderly woman in her last days who cannot understand why a man is touching her. And Susan, her distraught daughter, unable to bear her mother's distress a second longer. Look them in the eyes and tell them why you have fully stripped away their right to safety, privacy and dignity. All of these scenarios have already happened and you have dismissed them as bigotry. Politicians in our ivory towers make the rules, most born with a silver spoon in their mouths. We elect these people and we can vote them out. Women in Scotland, women in England, women everywhere. We are winning this war for our rights. In the courts of law, we have won or partially won every UK case this year, and I have now cursed the LGB Alliance, so sorry. The TRA counter-protests here have been frankly laughable. We took over Brighton! Women are speaking louder and the public are waking up to this misogynistic insanity. Sure, we've had setbacks, but we will carry on because we must. For the women I've mentioned, stories due to common. For our mothers, wives, sisters, aunts, our daughters, and the women yet to come into this world. We are 51% of the population and we will be heard.
What a fabulous speech. We're coming up a time now in Scotland, you've just heard, they've passed the GRA reform bill, but they had to whip their party members and force them.
And some still rebelled, so there's hope still.
Yeah, even in Scotland, which we've seen the SNPs just total bulldozing through women's rights and inability to listen, I think is still getting through, because at the end of the day they're fighting a losing battle against reality, really, aren't they? Yes.
Who's next?
Who's next? Who would like to say something? Okay, we've got Stella Perrett, cancelled artist.
No, Mike. No, you just got to.
Just got to project.
Yeah.
Right, project as much as I can. Hello, everybody. Witches, warlocks, head men over. What you called over there? I don't know what he is, but he's a he's LARPing as something. But he was here last Halloween, so welcome back, everybody who was here last Halloween. This is a lovely gathering. This reminds me of when Kelly J started these back in 2019-20. There was only 20 or 30 of us over there at Speaker's Corner. It's quite nice to have a smaller than before anyway. Well, a big shout out to our rock star who is currently touring the USA. And I just want to say those wonderful American women, I mean, to me it's a complete eye-opener. You can hear about it, you can read about it, you can talk to people on social media, but until you see with your own eyes what they have to put up with, I mean, we have it easy here. Doesn't matter how much we complain about our police, at least they're there on the site. At least they're there to arrest people, you know, and all we have to put up with is maybe a little smoke bomb or something. We can put our umbrellas up, and do you know what I mean? But in America, they have to look, they might be armed, these people might come armed. It's absolutely appalling. And to me, it's been a real eye-opener. And I've been on Getter now since January, so I talked to a lot of Americans, but watching Kelly J's tour, I was amazed, absolutely amazed. So there was going to be an American lady coming today who said she was going to miss seeing Kelly J. I don't know if anybody of you know her, whether she's here or not. Anybody from America? No? No? Well, it's a shame she's not here, but if she does turn up, I'm going to give her a copy of my latest cartoon. Now, this is on my website and it's on Getter, and this is called The Cry of the Lonesome Trans. Can I see it? Can I put it up there?
Yeah.
The Cry of the Lonesome Trans, it's called. So it's a kind of American-themed cartoon. Like the Wild West. And it says the last chance for Sanity Saloon. And, you can pass it around and have a look at it if you like. And as usual, I've bought a signed copy of my book. If there's anybody, it's always difficult to kind of choose somebody. So I'm going to say who's travelled the furthest. Who's come from Scotland or... Who's off?
Devon's pretty far.
Lincoln, wasn't it?
No, there's Devon. Devon's further away.
Devon. I don't want it to always be the same people getting a copy of my book. Yes. Have you got a copy of my book? Seriously? Right, come on, just come up. You don't have to be in camera. Just come up and, so I can give you. There you are.
I'll put the camera like that.
Thank you very much.
It's the only book. Thank you. It's the only cartoon review of 2020, but it's still relevant today. That is pro J.K. Rowling, pro Magdalene Burns, pro standing for women, and it's got a pro J.K. Rowling cartoon on the front cover. The only book in the world that can say that. So you can buy it on Amazon, and I will hand out a couple of leaflets about it later on. And I just want to say, DJ Lippy, what are you dressed as? You look like you've broken out from the Tavistock.
It's so obvious. It's so obvious. Is that better? That was Stella Perrett, cancelled artist. For those who are still wondering, Fox Killer Joel and yeah, I killed the babe. Well, the babe's dead now anyway, innit? So. Has anybody else got something they'd like to say? Come up and have a speak. Fabulous.
Off camera?
No, just put my stuff down.
Get out the way. Yep.
Hello. Hi. Yeah, I'm American. I've been, this is my second Speaker's Corner. I'm a dual national. I just wanted to say, really, to the politicians, to Rishi Sunak. He's saying some really interesting things, but deeds not words, all right? So the Conservatives really smashed it in the last election. I was campaigning for Labour and I felt it hard. But they can't just assume that they're just going to get the women's vote now by saying the right things. We still have men in women's prisons. We still have women getting arrested, for goodness sake, for saying no to men. We have all sorts of ridiculous things going on. We have disabled women who can't necessarily say no to men. And it's all well and good for the Conservatives to stand up and preach to the choir, but you've got to go further. We need these things to be solidified in law. You need to get a handle on the police who are not taking care of women. And to Keir Starmer, yeah, seriously, I was a Labour member and I voted for him. I cancelled my membership shortly after voted for him. Keir Starmer, you're not going to have my vote. I'm not going to be rejoining Labour, not until you can stop fumbling over your words and making sure that you're going to protect women. For children like my daughter who can't necessarily say no, learning disabled women, for women who are being put in cages with men, we need protection. We need you to stand up and stop this. He's just standing there trying to appease everyone. You're not going to appease everyone. You need to do what's right. We know you know what a woman is. Now stand up, stand by Rosie Duffield, and then you'll get our vote. That's it for me.
Yeah, what a fabulous speech. I mean, we've got a new government not even 2 months have gone by. We've got a new Prime Minister, a new leader of the country. Who knows how long he will stay in office. I think the difficulty is we've got 2 years and we can make a lot with that time, but it's whether or not this government is in a position to remain for 2 years. It's a zombie government now. It might need to go on life support a little bit. Does anybody else want to say anything?
Yes, I just cut this out of the Evening Standard, 20th October 2022. Starmer pledges new role to support LGBT rights. And he says, my Labour government will appoint an international LGBT plus rights envoy. It's time to ban conversion therapy in all its forms, whatever that means. It's time for tougher hate crime laws, unquote. He also pledged to modernise the Gender Recognition Act. Presumably that's what's just happened in Scotland. Right, that's it. That's Starmer for you. In case, like me, having been a Labour voter nearly with every vote I've had, you think, oh, I'm duty bound to vote Labour, all my ancestors have. That's what you'd get, just want to say. And it's very important that this does not become enshrined in law as it has been in Norway. It's absolutely embedded in every law in Norway. And we have Christina Ellingsen, who has been threatened with prison for saying a man cannot be a lesbian, a man cannot be a mother. These are her two sins, crimes. That was 3 months ago. She still hasn't been charged officially because the government and everyone else is now shuffling their feet, looking at the floor and wringing their hands and thinking, oh, what should we do? Don't know what to do about this. But it's very, very important that we should keep this out of the law. And I think maybe the only way to do that is to target MPs and get them out of office at the first possible opportunity. I'm thinking of people like Penny Mordaunt, of course.
I think we're going to have to take standing for women to the next level. Maybe in the next general election, a few of the women here might want to stand for women as a candidate against a local politician. I know myself, my hometown, Failsworth, the local MP there is Angela Rayner. I did try to have a meeting with her face to face. It didn't go down very well. I wasn't dressed like this. But, you know, I think we are going to have to take things to the next step, and unfortunately, there are no political parties we can even work with. I mean, there's the Tory party who are so wishy-washy, but for many of us, all our other values are so much opposed to them. Sometimes, like Suella Braverman, I like what she says about schools, and then I look at the voting record, and I'm like, it's a really awkward position that women are in, because we're having to choose between the lesser of two evils, and to be honest, even what the Tories are offering us isn't really justifiable for all the rights that are being taken for us, and I think they're getting a lot of credit for this turnaround, when actually it was a Tory party who installed the ideas to change the Gender Recognition Act, and they've been in government while all this has been happening. So it's not very well they can turn around and blame the woke left, when this is an establishment policy top down that they have helped to bring along with many governments, left wing and right wing around the world. So yeah, maybe we'll all have to start thinking strategically about who's going to stand where and stand against politicians. Who party stand? Well, who would like to come next? Who else wants to speak today? Yeah.
I'm DC Side of the Moon, and last night I really pissed off Monty, and now I'm suspended. And I just want to say, I didn't shut up when men were screaming at me to get off the streets of Brighton while I spoke about my childhood sexual abuse. So I will be back, Monty, and you will never be a woman. You're still a fucking man.
Oh. Short and sweet, that's nice.
To the point.
Yeah, very much to the point. This is one thing that I've been reflecting quite a lot about, actually, is we see it in the streets of Brighton or the streets of Baltimore, wherever you go, Antifa. They've got a few stock phrases, shall we say, a few things that they love to chant at us. But one of my favourite ones is they don't realise how much they're telling on themselves when they say TERFs go home, TERFs go home. And we're like, yeah, that's the point, isn't it? Yeah. You want women to go home, to not have a part in public life, to not be full citizens with the full rights that are granted to men. Women are losing our rights at toilets, which for many women, you know, if you can't use the toilet when you're out and about, how long can you stay out? The urinary leash was something that was well known to the Victorians. It was part of women having the right to enter public life, was to fight for women-only toilets, which were denied them because mixed-sex toilets were not safe for women. So good godly women weren't supposed to use public toilets. They didn't have any facilities, and this is what is happening now. We're having our rights removed, our access removed, and all the while they scream at us to go home like they're the good guys. But you know, I am home. Whose streets? My streets. We all pay taxes in this country. We've all got a right to access the public squares, to speak our minds about the things that really matter to us. That being said, has anybody else got anything they'd like to say?
Whose turf? Our turf.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. Katie said something about Suella Braverman, and I want to say something that's connected to what we're doing today, but like a little bit different as well. So one of the dangers of the new regime is that the Police and Criminal Evidence Act is being expanded, and some of the civil liberties have been taken away in the last couple of years. We're at danger of actually losing even more of the right to protest. Like, things can be rebranded as protest and criminalized, like even this, like vigils, like speak outs. Now this connects to something that I've been really interested in, because the immediate fight is to keep prisons single sex, to keep our facilities single sex, to kind of tell them that women exist. But the fight a couple of steps down the line has a little bit to do with the tech that's coming. And I want to give a shout out to 3 good feminists who are talking about the connections between our fights now and the struggles we're going to be facing in the next couple of years. And they are Jennifer Billick, Kay Yang, and Alison McDowell. And they're talking over these really amazing women who are making connections that for some of us seem a bit strange and unconnected. But one of the things they're talking about is a central bank digital currency, which there are very strong plans for really getting into place as quick as they can, and making society cashless. How does that affect us? That's the thing I want to say about cashlessness. How does that affect us? Because once society goes cashless, it sort of disenfranchises poor women, women in prison, migrant women, refugee women, women escaping domestic violence, marginalized women. And what they're selling to us is convenience and paying with our phones, and ultimately with biosensors they want us to pay with ourselves. But that's 3 steps down the line. Right now we're facing cashlessness, and I want to say that although it doesn't seem connected to the women's rights struggle we're fighting right now, I'd like to encourage feminists to keep cash, use cash, take cash out every day, demand that cash is used, because once things go cashless, it's going to be harder for us to organize. Suppose this becomes criminalized and we have to just kind of meet in back rooms and use cash. I mean, that would never happen, right? But if it does, we need cash, we need freedom, we need all our movements not to be tracked and traced. And weirdly, I was having a conversation with a feminist last week who said, I don't mind being tracked and traced. I'm not doing anything wrong. We need to watch against that, because we're not doing anything wrong right now. But think, this new regime is not sitting well with me. Whatever she said about whatever rhetoric he gave us, things could get more authoritarian and more draconian. Things could change at any time. So one of the things we can do to keep meeting and to keep free is to keep cash, and watch out for notice of a feminist meeting about that quite soon. So keep cash.
Yeah, really important aspect to this, thank you for bringing that up, Elizabeth, is the 4th Industrial Revolution, Build Back Better, a lot of these policies being pushed. And you're right to bring up a few women. Jennifer Billick, if you haven't done so already, you can check out her blog. She's got a blog called the 11th Hour Blog. Kay Yang has a wonderful channel on YouTube called The Deprogrammer. And Alison McDowell, I'm not sure how to contact her. If she's on, I think Facebook, if you have a Google. A lot of what she says goes right over my head. It's out there, but that's because a lot of the laws that are coming and a lot of the ways they're trying to transform society, I think they're going over a lot of our heads, and it's a big part of the conversation that seems to be missing is what's going to happen a few years down the line when we have these digital currencies. Rishi Sunak's father has a company in India who's one of the main suppliers of social credit scores and digital IDs in India. It is coming in the United Kingdom. And if you think things are back now, getting banned off Twitter for making a wrong comment, what's going to happen when they lock you out of your bank account? But hop, skip and a jump, and we could all be there. So I think it's something that we all need to get a bit better at learning and just trying to understand a lot of what's happening, a lot of the technical jargon, because a lot of it just goes like that, doesn't it? Right, who would like to speak next? Anybody? Any more women? Yes.
Off camera.
Yeah. I'll move camera.
Just stand.
Yeah. You stand here and then it'll go through. Yeah.
Yeah, I think my voice will project quite well because I am a teacher. I was a senior leader. I am a middle leader now because I have to step down because of my partner. I'm a carer. Hence why I don't want to be on camera, because my income is the only income in the household. But one of the things that I was thinking of the last time I was here 2 months ago, I think I mentioned that one of the things we could do is apply to be a school governor. That's one way you can be a check and balance in what's been going on in schools. The other thing that I've been thinking about recently is how we can ensure that all staff in a school are aware of some of these safeguarding concerns. And every year, every member of staff, from caretaker to head teacher, has to sign that they have read the Keeping Children Safe in Education document. And in there are some key safeguarding things that every member of staff needs to be aware of. I think it was 2 years ago, the FGM edicts were put into the Keeping children safe in education. So every member of staff had to read and understand what the whole FGM laws were in this country, and I think a similar thing needs to happen in regards to gender identity ideology. I've written to my MP, I'm still waiting for a response, but I would urge all of you, that's one thing you can do, is write to your MP and ask that any changes in gender identity in terms of guidelines that the government wants to put out that we've been waiting for ages, can they please, to ensure that everybody in schools are aware of it, goes into the Keeping Children Safe in Education document, because if it does come out, say in January or February, all staff will have to have an inset where they sign and read that they have understood that and they understand what this means. The other thing that I was thinking about was that we need to think about how we ensure that providers of materials that teachers are using to teach children or training materials for staff are regulated, and I think Ofsted needs to be really pulled into this, and they need to be made aware that actually it's okay to say, yes, staff do have a responsibility to check the appropriateness of the materials, but on a realistic basis, the people that are producing those documents need to be vetted in some way, and that has to happen in their particular areas. So the companies that are producing these materials need to be vetted, need to have an Ofsted stamp, if you like, for safeguarding before they can sell those documents to schools. That would be my personal...
Thank you for coming up and speaking a little bit about the schools angle. Are you on social media at all? What's your handle? Are you...
JGAHF.
JGAHF, is that your Twitter? She's on Twitter, so if you want to have a look. And I think this is one of the problems with the transgender monolith, if you will, the octopus, is it has tentacles in every single institution in the United Kingdom, and schools, I think, is one of the battlefronts that it's being fought out on. When politicians refuse to listen, you have to go right back to the local level, even governors in your own schools. And I think we've seen a lot of that in the USA, what's happening in the school board level. It's been really inspirational to see, kind of similar to what's happening here. A lot of ordinary women, people who have never been in politics in their life, don't really understand the ins and outs, are having to very quickly come together and get up to speed about how their local communities function and how democracy functions at a local level. Would anybody else like to come and speak?
Can I speak a second?
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
I'd just like to recommend that. I've recommended this on YouTube, but I'll do it here as well. There's a channel called Terfan, Terfan, space man, MAN, and I really thoroughly recommend it. And he explains in great detail exactly how the Welsh government has been taken over, has been captured by the TRA, and he does a deep dive into how this is organised and financed, and I really, really recommend it. I know what he's saying applies particularly to Wales, but it also could apply anywhere.
What's the name of that?
Terfan, Terfan, space man, MAN.
Fantastic, thank you. Before we wrap up, I think all the women who would like to speak have spoken. So, you know what's coming next, don't you? Come on, Mr. Menno.
Hello everyone. That's a pretty good turnout. Right. The greatest trick that gender ever pulled was to convince the world that sex did not exist. And so a question has been going round and around and around. What is a woman? 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 We hear this question over and over in debates, in documentaries, on social media, even in courts of law and in Parliament. It is, of course, the wrong question, and it's only being asked to draw attention away from the real question that needs answering. What is trans? What does it mean? What does the T stand for? Here's what we know. T stands for theft, the stealing of our identities. T stands for twisting of language and reality. T stands for the taking of our spaces and our rights. T stands for tarnishing those who stand up to fight. T stands for trashing the differences between a woman and a man. T stands for turning off the voices of those who dissent. T stands for terrorizing online and in the streets. T stands for trying to get in between our sheets. If the T had their way, it would be Halloween every day. But the T also stands for TERF! And the T also stands for truth. So allow me to spill the tea. Trans women are men. Trans men are women. An inverted penis is not a vagina. And lesbians do not have penises. So let us ask, what is trans? And let the truth be seen. Because one day a year is enough to indulge in Halloween.
Thanks for that, Mr. Menno, dropping the tea as ever. Now, if nobody's got anything else they'd like to say, speak now or forever. Oh, yes, we've got another woman.
This is being filmed, isn't it? Okay.
Do you want to come? Do you not want to be on camera?
I'd rather just have the sound, but people do know my voice anyway.
You can stand if you stand here.
I'll stand here.
I've got you. You're not on camera. Do you want to be on camera?
I might as well.
Come on then.
You know what is the difference? All right. The thing I want to speak about is all of us, I think, in our daily lives are going to be meeting up with this rubbish. So I'm just going to tell you about 2 fights I've had recently, quite big fights. One, and I think that quite honestly, every single one of us should have the fight. You know, when it comes into our lives, have the fight. So, for example, one of the fights was I was meeting this group of fellow kind of old codgers. I kind of called it the Old Codgers Club, although it wasn't called the Old Codgers Club. But we were meeting. Anyway, there were 2 gentlemen dressed as ladies who turned up, and one of my friends mentioned just offhand that she'd seen said gentleman coming out of the ladies. And you know how it is, sometimes you don't immediately react, but I thought, I'm not happy about this. So then I sent a little email round to my little group saying, well, and I'd sent a thing to the director saying, look, there's 2 gentlemen dressed as ladies, and I just asked, are they using the ladies' toilets, even though I knew they were. Anyway, the thing was, actually, I got into a big fight, a much bigger fight with one of my friends than I did with the directors, with whom I had sort of a reasonably kind of polite exchange, but I made it clear what the legal situation was in terms of the Equality Act, and also in terms of if anything happened in those ladies' toilets, then in actual fact they would be in the frame, all right? And then the other thing was, okay, unfortunately, this is someone who has been looking after my neighbour's children, and I'd introduced her to my neighbours for looking after their kids. And then she started saying, oh, well, I used the wrong pronouns.
So she didn't want the neighbours' kids to know that she was, you know, her ex was a woman. So she said she, and then one of the kids kind of, his ears pricked up, and he said, oh, I meant they, them. But then again, it was a question of me thinking, well, actually, I'm not happy about this either. You know, you're polluting this child's ears. You know, you can be kind of trying it on with me. You're not going to get anywhere with me. So I had a huge fight with her as well. So all I'm saying is that these fights are going on, and have them. That's all. Bye.
Can I just have a show of hands or anything? Can you put your hand up if you've had a fight with your nearest and dearest over the trans issue? Yeah, keep it up. Have you lost any friends over it? Yeah, yeah.
Have you made any new friends?
Right. Is anybody feeling inspired and would like to come along and destroy all their friendships? Sorry.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. It's more sweeties. Take them on, take them.
So this is unrehearsed, but basically what I want to talk about is wings, political wings. And the thing with reality is that reality doesn't have a wing. So if Ben Shapiro comes out and says the earth is round, it doesn't mean that me as a left-wing person has to start believing that the earth is flat. It just means that we both just happen to recognise what reality is. If Ben Shapiro or the Republican Party really went for, say, climate change policies, does it mean that everyone on the left wing would have to start believing that climate change isn't happening? Would it mean that they would have to start going, oh, well, let's just wrap up all of our climate change activism because it's now a right-wing talking point? That is not how this works. And, you know, I used to be very much on the other side of this, and I sort of realised when I peaked, as it were, that I had outsourced a lot of my thinking to my general political group. I hadn't really considered this. I'd been very lazy, and I'd just sort of gone along with it because, like, my side are always right. My side are always the correct people, and it's the Republicans, only the Republicans and the Conservatives that believe crazy things. And then I sort of, when I peaked, I was like, oh shit, we've got this really, really wrong. And I think what we need to come to a point towards is that instead of going, what is it that my tribe thinks, what is it that all my friends think, we need to basically do what Bertrand Russell advised, which is ask yourself only the facts and what is the truth that the facts bear out. And
Yeah, very good speech. There is no left and right when it comes to reality. I agree.
My mate said, Jane Critical said the other day, two cheeks of the same arsehole, innit? Do we have any more women feeling inspired and want to come up and say something? You don't have to come on camera, like I say, you can just stand on this side if you don't want to be filmed. Any men? Any men before we finish?
Any others? No? Okay.
Before we finish up, we have
dressed up. This is not a normal gear.
It's not what we wear. Normally.
I'm not a furry, I promise.
That being said, we have decided to have a bit of a fancy dress competition. So anybody who would like to be considered for the fancy dress competition, please present yourself, and we'll just go audience.
Yeah, we'll go audience clapping. So come on. Nobody? Just one? That's easy.
Let me see.
Go on,
Let me see if I can get
it all on.
Right. Right.
Obviously, Andy is. Come on.
Any more? Come on.
Maiden.
Position.
Go on.
I wear this every day though.
You should have tried
Position.
Right. Just trying to get everybody. Where's Dobby?
can be.
Right, is everybody... Can we all come a bit closer together just because...
So you can get in camera. Oh, we got another one.
Oh, got another one, right. I don't know if we can get them all. Right, you just run up and do the voting thing, so can we have a vote?
Okay.
Fine, get everyone's names.
We're going to do vote by clapping. I'm just going to clap everyone.
Handmade, classic. I don't.
Oh, we can't win our own stuff. I'm not taking it.
We can't win our own stuff. I think, judging from what I heard, I think it has to come to the fabulous Harry Potter. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and for all of you coming today. I know that we didn't have Posey here, we didn't have that special. You didn't sing, but we still never lose. I am not going to sing for you.
I've got one line of a song.
Oh, she's got one. There we go.
I've got one line. The last line is "We will stop you." All right, everyone together. Yeah. We will stop you. Okay. So, buddy, you're a boy making big noise, playing in drag. No wait. Buddy, you're a boy making big noise, playing in drag. Gonna be a big trend someday. You got rouge on your face, in my space, spinning that dress all over the place. But we will stop you. Okay, that's what I got.
Thank you all for coming. Give yourselves a huge round of applause.
Go to the front.
Right, how do I stop this? Right, how do I stop this now? Like that.
Oh, I've done it. I got you.